and we evolve. So whatever I'm doing, I'm evolving. I'm learning more and more every time I do the passage, going and coming. Everybody will close their eyes and gonna breathe with us. This is to experience the color frequencies. So close your eyes and take a deep breath. Take the breath. 1, in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathe out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathe out.
Where does history begin? Who says where it does? Is it perhaps good to keep it unfixed? So every different beginning can be contemplated as the beginning of everything. Can a beginning be placed in the future and not only in the past? Can the beginning remain untold, unfixed, mutant? Mobile, ever-changing. As usually told, history has been written. What if instead it was composed, sang, played, danced? In the early 50s, Halim by chance found something that would be fundamental in his practice in the years to come. Someone had left a magazine on a metro seat, which had printed in its pages an ancient Egyptian score. Within this score system, the color references the note, and the size suggests the pitch. This finding spoke not only to his way of feeling sound, but also his connection to his ancestors. In his practice, he did not oppose the ancient and the modern. There were many correlations and continuities among them. He understood that the levels of sophistication were similar when listening to classical music and the music he recorded of various groups in Africa and both South and North America.
What your ear can hear, music is what your body can also experience. Every human being has a gesture, and the gesture explains all your life history in a way, because the way you move your body. So I can't say there's one African dance, there are thousands of gestures to explain a culture of a society. So between the gesture, which I'm very interested to learn and continue, and which I learned when I traveled in Africa, and the relation to sound is a fantastic tool of becoming liberated.
With his interest in using the ancient color system, he actualized the technique and gave it recognition,
One of the best examples was the album The Dog Done Gone Deaf.
But histories, the one of the ancient Egyptian Coptic color score and the practice of HALIM, did not enter into most of the genealogies of the relation between music and color in the avant-garde. Through his understanding of color as sound, El-Dab introduced a powerful tool for analysis. His method allowed for exercises of translation. Color patterns can be read as compositions. He provided devices for reading and listening to the everyday. Would one understand the conditions of production of a textile by playing its colors? The sonic travels through waves, its visualization rendering information in transit. Waves are the physical, often invisible, manifestation of vibration, which is a fundamental quality of sound. Halim El-Dab proposed that there is a common vibration that connects everything in the universe, a noise in which all takes part.
Each part can reveal the whole, and through the whole, one can access each part. He explored this idea in Mekta in the Art of Kita.
Records also work through waves. If the surface of a vinyl is magnified, a landscape-like impression is to be found. Like a mountain chain, its shape is wave-like, a minuscule land that produces sound. A similar view is to be found in tape.
Halim explored this noise in works such as The Expression of Zar or Electronics and the Word.
Waves are by definition a device that travels through time and space, connecting different temporalities.
Halim played with this idea in Layla and the Poet, produced in Columbia Princeton Electronic Music Center in 1959.
Being formed in different velocities, waves give shape to water, skin, sand, geological formations, surfaces of seas, movement of planets, or voices. The figure of the wave is a scientific, poetic, and political one. The wave is polysemic in its own nature. It speaks to the currents of the ocean waves, used for the colonial routes and exploitation chains. It speaks about the text we can find hidden in fabrics. The textile is written with a binary coding system, which gave rise to computing. It speaks about how to distribute messages using the spectrum of radios and modern Wi-Fi signals. Halim was concerned with the study of wave phenomena. He could be considered an outstanding specialist in the science of semantics, how sounds affect matter. Can we read the traces left by sound and compose a history through music? Who would be the subjects of such a history? Music and mathematics have a direct relation, which was lost with the rise of positivism and the suppression of spiritual knowledge in Western societies.
The recognition of the knowledge of his ancestors was one of the driving forces of DABH, with compositions such as Apep and Ra.
Beyond Egypt, the composer was largely interested in African epistemologies, which included knowledge transmission through oral history. Together with orality, there are additional mediums to look at and listen to understand this challenge. Pattern making is indeed a way of writing, a system of recording, and a method of organizing algorithmic information. These types of knowledges can be found in textiles, dance, paint, ceramics,
And the Earthlings don't know what was going on. They're suffering. The Earthlings did not know what's to be. Albert Roberts on race. Albert Roberts on race. With mystery, obscurity, and no way that Rob and Albert will get together.
Each cosmovision offers their own ways of patterning, which translates into different ways of dividing time and space, and of course, wealth redistribution.
One of the many sides of Halim al-Dabh was his research on ethnomusicology. He received grants from the Rockefeller Foundation, the Smithsonian, the Egyptian government, and the American Philosophical Society, among others, to carry this research. Albums such as Drum Voices from Africa or African Village Music show the impressive depth in music he found along the way.
While traveling through Africa, he would make sure to meet politicians such as Léopold Sédar Senghor in Senegal. The challenging of histories within DABH'S work must be understood in its political dimension, as he was a Pan-Africanist and researcher as well as an advocate for human rights.
The grains of my music contained the people around me, the environment, the interaction, the peasants, the workers, those who are simple, farming, and those who are trading, and those who are in offices. They come into a cluster of sound that mixed with these sounds of what I'm experiencing. They all come together. The desire for democracy is very part of the grain of the Egyptian people. That's what they want.
In connection with the understanding of music as algorithmic knowledge, one can also think about how the African talking drums have been providing systems of wireless sharing of information much earlier than radio, telegraphy, and even Wi-Fi. Can the knowledge accumulated in Halim DABH'S practice be a prism for producing divergent forms of reading and rewriting histories of science?
Apart from his work as a composer, researcher, and activist, Halim DABH was also a professor at the Haile Selassie University, a position he accepted in the 70s when he was in the peak of his fame in New York, which may have partially led to his failing into oblivion in the memory of future histories. Within this academic position, he looked for popular musicians everywhere in Ethiopia and brought together Orchestra Ethiopia. The components of this orchestra belonged to different tribes whose music was functional, in the sense that it was part of everyday rituals and as such had specific meanings. When Halim was invited to be part of the program, he only accepted under the condition of not teaching Western composition, but instead working with local musicians.
With this strategy, Halim managed to get the approximately 30 musicians teaching jobs at the university, bringing the students back to the music of their own native culture that otherwise would have been overlooked by the academic structure. During the time he was at the university, he catalyzed a shift in the educational structure. The social interactions that happen in infrastructures are organized through different rhythms. Can the constitutional work of Halim, beyond the sonic, be understood as a mode of composition and scoring? Rhythm has a direct relation to time and space, which Eldab explored deeply. There are different types of time which translate into different types of rhythm. There is the linear progressive time, which seems to be the one followed by capitalism. It's the time of production, which doesn't allow for a comeback. Most of the contemporary time seems to be under this sign, which performs a permanent division between past, present, and future. It has a tendency to separate and categorize. It's the time of the clock, the drumming of the machines, the electronic whisper of the needle and the hard memory of the computer. The people leaving the factory, the crowd circulating in the city towards their jobs.
In 2005, Eldab was commissioned to compose signals and connections, using only his own voice for the American Music Center in New York, which could only be heard over the telephone calling the center. The linear time can be read quite well in this piece by Eldab.
There is a cyclical perception of time made by circular rhythms. This kind of time was the basis for many ancient rituals in various societies. It connects the macro and the micro, the slow displacement of constellations, the movements of planets, the changing of seasons, the coming and going of tides, the calm of fast-paced clouds, the migration of birds, the appearance of crops, the heartbeats of beings. This time produces a rhythm that interweaves the cosmic, the body, and the worldly. It's the time of relation. It's the time that would allow us to be attuned to nature and stop its predatory exploitation.
Many of Halim's compositions seem to delve into this kind of rhythm, in particular, evolution of a heartbeat.
Which kind of rhythm composes the social body?
In the work from 1991, Harmonies of the Spheres, 10 Nations Rejoice, he again introduced methodologies of connection using the color system.
He symbolizes the relationship of the planets in alignment and embodied a feeling of harmony and universality among the world's people. Using the order of the cosmos, he proposed the idea of one common being from the macro to the micro scale. Each part can show the whole, and through the whole, one can access each part. The imagining of constellations is one, if not the first, way of map making. In ancient times, astronomy and music were described as twin studies of sensual recognition. Astronomy for the eyes, music for the ears, and both requiring the knowledge of numerical proportions. In LDABH'S work, this would be a galactic cluster of sounds with a direct correspondence to Earth. But given the nature of the thinking of HALIM, the terrestrial correspondence would have other qualities, perhaps one that was made of an unfixed constellation, open to the unexpected.
Well, the very essence is vibration. Vibration is the reality of our being. We are all vibrations. And if we focus into the 1,000 drums, if we become the 1,000 drums, if we feel the vibrations of each other in the 1,000 drums, this will ripple across the planet. So suddenly everybody on this planet will be connected. The reality, we are all one. And the Symphony of 1,000 drums will show that we are one, that humanity is one. It's an awakening of humanity to the very core of what it is to be a human.
With the Symphony for 1,000 drums, saw a universality expanding through space and diversity. It was an example of a plebeian organization against authority, where there was some conduction but total freedom of interaction. This composition, which was quite open, invited a spatial organization that celebrated difference. Perhaps let's finish with the beginning. Since 1961 until this very day, every night in the plateau of the pyramids of Giza, there is a spectacle of sound and light that plays at its base. At the end of the 50s, Halim lived for a period back in Egypt with his family, during which he worked for the Government of Cultural Affairs. The government commissioned him to compose the music for the spectacle, which was titled Here History Began. The music composed by LDABH was to be recorded in Paris under the conduction of Georges Delerue. At the end of the production, only 2 of the themes composed by LDABH of the whole spectacle remained. To the present day, he still has not received recognition by the company running the spectacle, nor has he received any royalties.
You have come tonight to the most fabulous and celebrated place in the world. Here on the plateau of Gizeh, stands forever the mightiest of human achievements. No traveler, emperor, merchant, or poet has trodden on these sands and not gasped in awe. The curtain of night is about to rise and disclose the stage on which the drama of a civilization took place. Those involved have been present since the dawn of history, pitched stubbornly against sand and wind. And the voice of the desert has crossed the centuries.
We're part of the energy that makes the universe. We're bolts and screws of the universe, whatever happening, we open up to it. We are flowers of the universe. We blossom and we continue. So the thought becomes very powerful.